So it's been days later, and I've been dealing with this p219a fuel trim imbalance on bank one. I'm kind of indecisive. I want to just give you the whole video of the how everything got to this point, but being that the internet attention span is like the size of a nickel, it's kind of hard to keep people's attention and provide substance and answers. Not everybody operate the same, and it seemed like the majority of people don't care about data stuff. So I'll try to be generic. Well, I've been talking for 36 seconds. Let's just move on. This p219a obviously could be many of things in regards to what will affect fuel trim. In my particular case, I don't like throwing parts at it, so I went with what was needed for this vehicle. First, it needed a tune-up. It needed catalytic converters. That was the first thing I've installed. Catalytic converters didn't have any power. They were horrible. Got those replaced. Power came back. I replaced all 4 sensors with Walker sensors. Y'all know I frequently patronize O'Reilly's Auto Parts, and I got everything from there, from the catalytic converters to they were MagnaFlow to oxygen sensors. Got that resolved, got the power come back, and then that fuel trim imbalance code came up, and that's what I've been battling for the longest, because I've been trying to complete the fuel, not the fuel, but I've been trying to complete the drive cycle. So this is many days of dealing with this. I eventually swapped the injectors. I was going to clean them. I did clean them, and I did diesel. And I know that doesn't make any sense. Gasoline cleaning gasoline injectors with diesel. And I swapped the bank 1 to bank 2. Issue still persisted on bank 1. So the plugs, I replaced the spark plugs. They were worn out, extremely excessive gap. But that's the first thing I did. I replaced the spark plugs, replaced the wires, got and brought up the maintenance. That didn't help. Still persisted. It don't make any sense for me to check anything beyond the global problem, because we're dealing with one bank. Okay, so I did notice there was cylinder misfires on bank 1. In this, it happened 1 or 2 times, and that was it. And then the code would trigger, and it was like only 2 misfires that will come about. Let's see if I can pull that up, and then I'll show you all the other stuff. Yeah, there's nothing significant. It will be like 3 and 5. That's it. 1 or 2 misfires, and it'll trigger a code. And it wasn't even hard. It was just detected. So once the code would come about, I would get the P2195 code. Then I'm like, okay, let me go ahead and swap the sensor from an aftermarket to an OEM. This is where things get a little bit more interesting. Ever since I swapped the sensor from aftermarket to OEM, I've been driving the car, and I got about 110 miles, I want to say. So we have no miles since some MIL active, because there's no active code. But since cleared, I've been able to drive 104 miles, no issues. But here's the problem. I'm almost done completing the drive cycle here. I had two good normal warm-ups. Let me go to vehicle status so you can see how far along I am with inspection. Monitors that are incomplete are 2. No codes found. Monitors okay that are 6. No codes are present. No codes present. So we were making progress. But for some strange reason, my inspection is stuck in the purgatory. Let's go to vehicle incomplete monitor readiness here. You'll see that since cleared. And the only thing that's incomplete is EVAP, which is expected. That's usually the last to monitor, and the oxygen sensor monitoring. Okay, so I made a significant leap in progress. Now, why is it not going through monitoring test for the oxygen sensor. Here's what I found out. I had to slow the graph down pretty significantly to, this is normal. So look at these O2 sensor readings. Bank 1 is going to be blue trace. Bank 2 sensor 1 is going to be the green trace on this one. The amplitude, being that this code monitors the amplitude, you can see on the aftermarket one is higher on the green trace. And I've noticed that it would hit a peak of 8.5 to 8.9 volts in times. Look out, that's the smallest, most notable discerning differences I've seen with these aftermarket sensors versus the factory one. Since I replaced the OEM, the amplitude is lower on the OEM than the aftermarket, and I have a good explanation as to why later. So I increased the time, well, I did increase the time base from 1 second to 2 seconds. You can still see the uniformity of the blue, which is our bank 1, and our amplitude is, for the most part, still lower. There's an 8.7 volt there, 8.8 volt there, 0.8 volt. You can see it's still lower than the aftermarket one. Look at the frequency of the aftermarket on the green trace. Look how rapidly it's oscillating in comparison to the factory. And again, there's a good explanation for this. So it has more frequency. I increased the time base to, let me see here. Well, I'm gonna say increase, but I slowed the time base down to, let me see, 8 seconds per division. That's 4 seconds here. Look how smoother it looks. So the blue trace on this is going to be bank 1. The purple is going to be bank 2. That still has the aftermarket one. My speed is 0. My RPM is 601. Look how smooth that is. Look how jagged the aftermarket one is. And the amplitude is still higher. So technically it's low is lean, high is rich. So it's reading richer on the bank 2 side, but it's not having the issue well enough to generate a code. You can see how smoother the transition is on the factory one than you can the aftermarket, which the aftermarket is purple. One big thing I've also noted during a drive, I would decel, and this would be more evident. This is an idle condition right here. So this is a slower time base on 8 seconds per division. Look at how more uniform bank 1 is with the factory OEM sensor. Check out the aftermarket on bank 2. So the plan is to just replace both upstreams. I'm gonna go to AutoZone and they have GM brand sensors for $100. I'm gonna go get that. I already got one, so we're gonna try to get the other bank as uniform and the amplitude reduced just as bank 1. So right now I'm gonna go ahead and show you the discerning differences between an old bank 1 factory sensor, which look exactly the same, and the new Walker Universal, I'm just gonna say Universal, the aftermarket sensor. So here we got the aftermarket to the right, Walker, OEM to the left here. Look at the difference. The aftermarket has more holes. Okay, and I'm trying to be generous here, being that I'm still a proponent of aftermarket and I'm not going to stop using them. But this is just that rare case where the design created the variable for this very fickle code that generated this p219a or 9b. So in this case with this vehicle, the factory old sensors, I put these back in there, they all had their own problems. They were stuck lean for the most part, and since they were stuck lean, it caused rich conditions. That's what caused the catalytic converter to prematurely fail. So I tried both old sensors, they both generate their own code. I have the old downstream sensor in bank 2. But if you notice, the explanation here as to why the sensor is reading different is going to be the design structure. Look at all these holes here. Look at the lacking amount of holes on this one. My analogy in regards to what's going on is the bung trick. When you get oxygen sensors and you try to trick the catalytic converter, you delay the value, delay the reading by putting a spacer in the bung hole. Giggity. This one has more exposed reading element than the aftermarket one. I'm sorry, than the factory one do. So the aftermarket one has more exposed element. The factory one don't. And with that said, or with that being the case, this will delay the reading and smooth out that transition. So I wouldn't be surprised, hypothetically, you put a bung in here, you cover all this area up, and well, look at that, there's no head here. This also could have have some sort of variable when it comes to evacuation or metering. You know, the whole structure is not designed the same. But I'm pretty sure if you extended this out, it would delay the reading, which will smooth out that transition on that sine wave. So that's my logic behind why the aftermarket one will not be compatible in this particular case. And if you get a Bosch sensor, the Bosch have those Healy cuts. Let me see if I got one laying around. Well, this is a Bosch sensor, but it's not for this particular car. But I don't know if they have the same cut or not. But they're going to be designed different too. And it may be, you know, more compatible if it had this design more so than the Walker would. But being that there's a amplitude discrepancy, this is what's likely going to be the causation of our problems. It's just the design flaw or the design structure. So with all that said, I'm going to run to AutoZone, grab a new upstream for the right bank or bank 2, pop that in there. I'm not going to clear any codes. I'm going to start up and then hop on the highway and see what happens, and hopefully this should resolve our problem. So I got the bank 2 sensor one, O2 sensor replaced with the factory one, and notable difference here. Bank 1 sensor 1 was the original GM that I got replaced, and then the green trace now is bank 2 sensor 1. So for the most part, our green trace on bank 2 isn't superseding bank 1 now. But again, this is a cooler engine. I haven't driven it yet. It's been on for about 10 minutes and the truck been idling. So I'm gonna take it on a nice test drive. You can see the green trace looks a lot more smooth in transition. And this is an 8-second per division time base. So it looks a lot better than the rigid one before. As a matter of fact, no, I don't wanna take a screenshot just yet. Let me get it nice and warm. So I'm gonna get on the highway and see if our monitors go through its testing phase. The current status is 2 incompletes. The evap in the O2 sensor monitor was needed right now. So let me do that and I'll come back right now. There's no codes. No codes detected, so we're on a good track. Just went on a 10-mile test drive, and I have the same time base pulled up in the same color scheme for our PIDs previously. So you can see the amplitude has significantly changed on number 2, the purple trace. Number 1, bank 1, sensor 1, is actually having a higher amplitude, and they're both equally having a smooth oscillating wave. There's no more staggering at the top of the peak amplitude on the bank 2 sensor 1, and I'm gonna take a screenshot of this, and you can see that in our history here. So before, this is what we had going on. Bank 1 was fine. Bank 2 is the one in question. I have not checked and see if it's satisfied the driving cycle, but we're going to look at that shortly. I just want to get some good footage that we made a notable difference putting on the GM factory part. And again, the reasons being is the structural makeup. This one doesn't have as many holes, doesn't have the same amount of inlet and outlet. The evacuation is not going to be the same, so the way it reads it is going to be totally different. And that's just my assumption based off of the design and the sensing structural makeup. So and like I said, it's the only thing that makes sense, and that's the only thing I'm going to say that differs between the OEM and the aftermarket. And mind you, I have aftermarket sensors on the bank 2 sensor 2. That's the only walker I have on here. The vehicle went through its monitoring with the catalytic converter and passed, so that's fine. We just need the O2 monitoring to pass now. So let's go back and see if those conditions were satisfied. I'm nervous. I don't know. Hopefully that was enough because it registered as a good warm-up. No, it has not. And so I'm gonna make sure I don't have any pending codes in the computer. So likely what's going to happen, I need to wake up in the morning and take it on a test drive. So no fault code still. I got nervous. I'm gonna drive it around today. I gotta go to the gym and all the other fancy stuff. And when I get this repaired, I'm gonna update. So I'll just pretty much show that the drive cycle conditions were complete and this monitor is satisfied, because the only thing we're looking for is the oxygen sensor monitor. So that's the only one. And yeah, so evap and oxygen sensor monitoring. So that's the only one we're looking for right now. So once I get that satisfied, maybe I need to I didn't look up the drive cycle criteria for this, but normally when you shut the car down, let it sit for several hours and start it back up, it should do a O2 sensor monitoring. I'm not going to clear all these out just to go back through it, because I did do that initially. So maybe it skipped it, maybe it didn't, but I'm going to drive it more, let it cool down again, go through another heat cycle, and we should have 4 good warm-up counts, if I recall, because we already didn't complete it. This was the 3rd warm-up count here. Should be in there somewhere. Where you at? Did I pass it? So we should be at 100. Where's the mileage since MIL? That's not in there. There we go. So 113. There we go. Number of warm-ups since diagnostic trouble codes was 3. So this will be the 4th good trip counter coming up, and hopefully that'll go through its testing, and it'll be late. Maybe I'll update in some hours. Hopefully it'll go through it. Whew, finally, my 2nd test drive. I had to go to the parts store, and it's like 8 something at night, and I get off the highway and I saw this go from 2 to 1. So we're in the green. Let's see if we got any check engine lights. I have not checked. They said no codes, so we shouldn't have anything pending. No fuel trim imbalance. Yes. Cool. Awesome. And the only thing that should be last is the evap system, because the evap is typically the very last one. No, I went to the wrong one. I should went to I am readiness. And since cleared. And the evap is down here. Wait, where's the evap? Oh, I thought it was way down there. Typically it is. Did I go to, where did I go to? Did I hit since cleared, right? There you go. I was looking at my, okay. So evap system's incomplete. This is completely normal. This is gonna be fixed. So the biggest key thing here that I'm gonna take away from this, and hopefully somebody else, is the oscillation in the oxygen sensors. So you noticed from the trend that I had before how it was rigid at the top and it wasn't a smooth curvature in the sine wave. This was a more fluid sine wave on a slower time base. So instead of having it at 1 second per division, slow the time base down and monitor it from there. I'm not sure I'm gonna edit this video because I wanted to do the short version with what I did and what's going on, but I'm trying to incorporate the clips of things that I've done, but I don't want to make it 45 minutes long, but I like to give more information than not. The other key takeaway, the fuel trims, let me show you where those are. Here's my short term, long term, where's it at? Long term. So they're decent, they're better. This is at an idle and we're under 10, and there was some instance where it was around 6 to 8 and I've seen 10.9, but that's with the old sensor. I didn't monitor that while driving, but my fuel trims are below 10. Even when they were, it didn't affect the bank 2. It only affected bank 1. So I'm assuming now, I'm just assuming, this is just pure conjecture, being that the oxygen sensor didn't get monitored was because of the frequency. So this is just a conjecture, but normally it'll happen all in a day. Oh gosh, if it'll focus. So review my information. This is a good running vehicle. Oh my gosh, come on, stop doing that. So this is the 4th trip. Good trip, 18% fuel, and we have 123 miles driven. And I'm pretty sure if I would have had the factory sensors in there initially, it would have went through faster. Now, when I had the other sensors in there, it went through in a day, but I just had that fuel trim imbalance code. So here's my information. And again, this is idle. If I can get this camera to focus. So my cat temps are a little cooler. It's a cooler night right now. It was around 80 degrees a day. All right, so like I said, I'm gonna incorporate the clips. I may just put everything I did, give you a time frame of this video because all this was done in a day, and then I'll just incorporate the long version maybe after. I don't know yet, but if anything happened, I'll definitely update. Hit that link, subscribe to the channel, stay informed, had to rush on some work. See you on the next one.